Welcome to lovely England in the middle of winter. It's one of the worst days you could possibly have for riding a bike, so I thought I'd just show you the kit I'm wearing to keep me dry and warm outside. So temperature wise, just above freezing, probably 1 degree minus on the windshield according to my head unit, and it's not quite snowing. It's kind of like just turning from snow to rain, so everything gets soaked and then it gets cold. So this is probably the hardest condition to prepare for. So this is what I'm wearing. I guess to start with the outside, I've got my Albion Zoa rain chill on. It's got a hood as well, so I can pull it up if need be. And my Zoa rain pants, just to keep the wind and the moisture off my legs. And then got the good old Spats overshoes. So it's got to be really wet and cold to wear these, otherwise you just sweat, but I can assure you today I'm most definitely not sweating. So the next most important thing for me is hands. If you get wet hands, especially in these windy conditions, that can be horrific. So I've gone extreme today. I've got these grip grab kind of lobster mitts on. Just keep your fingers together, trap the air in. I've also got a second pair of gloves in the pocket of my jacket, so if these do soak through, I can then put some fresh gloves on for the way home, and hopefully that'll just stop me losing all feeling in my hands. I'm also wearing a merino buff around my neck and also a Zoa insulated scarf, just to keep the heat inside my jacket, and I can put it up over my mouth, obviously not while I'm talking to you. And then I've got a little grip wrap rain hat on under my helmet. Again, depending on conditions, if it wasn't raining, I just use I've got like a POC balaclava, which I used on my winter trip from Edinburgh to London. But for today, with the precipitation, I just want the peak to keep the rain off my face. And obviously glasses are pretty important, just to keep the wind out your eyes. So that's kind of the outer layers. When I get back home in the warm, I'll show you what I've got on underneath.
So I made it back from the ride, just about survived the conditions. I actually stayed pretty warm. I was out there for 2 hours on that particular ride, and as you can tell, it was pretty miserable. Even the camera wasn't liking it, hence the slightly sketchy images. But yeah, I stayed warm. The only thing I had, the gloves I was wearing soaked through in the last 15 minutes of the ride, so my hands started to get a tiny bit cold, but I had a spare pair in my pocket anyway, so I could have swapped those out, and that would have been fine. So now I'm back in the warm. I'll give you a run through of the rest of my kit, and I'll start with just summarising key features of the kind of my outerwear, which made it so useful. So I've got the Albion Zoa rain shell. I really rate this. Really waterproof, Pertex fabric. One of the good things is there's a massive hood on it. So you can really put it up over your head and really keep that heat in. When I did my Edinburgh to London ride with Rich before Christmas, that was really useful coming off the Pennines. The sleeves are also really good. You can see that they cinch down nice and tight. So you can really adjust them and keep all the water out and sort of put them over your gloves, just keeping the seal and keeping water out. And the other cool thing, I quite like the fact there's pockets in here. They act as vents, and also, when it's wet and cold, reaching behind and getting in your jersey pocket is just quite hard work. So I just put stuff in there like bars and stuff, so you can just get it real quick. And all these little things add up, and especially when it is wet and cold, you've got to keep eating. A, to keep moving, and B, to keep warm. If you haven't got energy, you're not going to stay warm. So making things easy by putting them in the front pockets, it makes a huge difference. The same goes with the Albion Zoa rain pants. These have just been released. I've been using them for a while. I used them on Tour Divide last summer. I say summer, it was horrific conditions in the snow, and they kept me really nice and warm, and they're really nice and quick to put on and off. He says not being able to do the buckle. Trust me, it's easier when you're wearing them. So you've got a massive wide opening, so you can really get in them quickly. And again, the legs have nice sort of big zips on them, so you can put them in and zip them up really tightly. And yeah, they've proven, you know, invaluable. And you know, the ride I went from home the other day, I went out the door in them, and my legs stayed warm. It just keeps the wind off. I mean, it doesn't even have to be raining for them to be useful. If it's really cold and the wind's really cold, just putting them over the top will keep a lot of heat in. And when you're doing like a bikepacking trip or even just a long ride, keeping heat in is important. So keeping wind off makes a huge difference. The other thing that I was wearing are these Spats overshoes. These are the Roadman 2s, and again, they are excellent. They're a bit of a faff to put on, but well worth it in conditions like that. You can see that they're super long. So basically, the interface between your, you know, the rain trousers and these, if they overlap, so you don't get water seeping down the top. You will get a tiny bit going through the base. Obviously, nothing's going to be fully sealed when you've got a cleat and stuff on there. But yeah, they're really good. And again, Rich was running this whole setup on our trip back from Edinburgh, and you can see he was like all hunkered up and nice and warm. I was also wearing my Zoa insulated scarf, so there's insulation in there, and just having it around your neck, just kind of, it fills the gap between the top of your jersey, your jacket, and you know, the neck, so it just allows the air to sort of trap in there a little bit more, which again is really useful, and that packs down into nothing. So you know, there's no excuse really to put that in your bag or your rear pocket. And I'd say that if you're going to be buying a Zoa rain shell, I'd just buy that anyway, because it just extends the versatility of that particular jacket, and makes it really useful. So on to the rest of the kit I was wearing. Socks wise, I've been using these, I think they're from Quoc, like the shoe people. They're just quite a thick merino sock. As you can see from the inside, there's kind of like a towely texture. And yeah, they're just, you know, they're just warm socks. Merino's excellent. I mean, when it's damp, you just need merino. So yeah, my feet were nice and warm. And when they get wet, they don't sort of get too bad. As I touched on, the gloves did wet out, and I did have another pair in my pocket. There were these, well, you can see they're very well worn. These are Descent 133 gloves. So they're kind of a rain glove. And again, they're an over glove more than anything. So normally I'd wear them with, I'd have like a pair of mitts, or some long finger gloves on a ride, and I could put these on or take them off. And I've ridden in like -8 and things like Tour Divide in these. If it was kind of, if it wasn't quite as cold on that particular ride I had just now, I probably would have worn these, but I got cold fingers a few days earlier, so I wanted the lobsters just to keep warm. My other go-to winter glove, and these are the ones I was actually wearing on the ride back from Edinburgh with Rich. These are DHB Aeron Lab gloves with Polartec, and they've got like insulation inside, this alpha stuff, and these are my day-to-day gloves in the winter. They're not too thick, and they keep your hands very warm for the size of them. The only problem is if they don't like water very much. They'll cope with light drizzle, but if they soak through, your hands will absolutely freeze. But if you use those in conjunction with the Descent gloves, then you've got a really warm combination. I'm actually doing the Silk Road mountain race later this year, and I think that will be the combination I'd probably use to cover like a wide variety of temperature ranges. You know, and it can be dry and cold, and it can be wet and cold. So you just need all those, you know, all those bases covered to keep you happy. Onto the other layers. So I am sponsored by Albion, so there is going to be a lot of Albion kit in this, but you know, a lot of other brands do very similar things. So you know, I'm going to be slightly biased, but you know, it's more the principle of the layers than anything. So these are the Albion Deep Winter tights. They're kind of like, it's a semi-water repellent outer. It'll cope with light drizzle, but it does soak through when it gets wet, and then you get cold. That's why the rain pants are such a good idea. Another good thing about these is they do have a rear pocket, and as you can see, Rich used it, you know, quite a lot on our trip to put his rain jacket in, and then it's just really, you know, easily available. lots of layers are key. So just being able to store them, put them on, put them off without too much faff, it makes a huge difference to your overall comfort in the ride. And it means you don't have to stop all the time and faff around. Base layer wise, I'm a big fan of these Spats base layers. So Spats is a small little British company. I brought this one about 3-4 years ago. I pretty much use it most of the winter. It's not merino, so it does get a little bit smellier, but it just keeps you super warm. Some of the features, the reasons I like it is really textured, so there's little ribs and things inside it. It just traps the heat in there. And it's got a really high collar, so it just stops the air coming down your neck. And also there's little thumb holes, so the sleeves sort of cover half your hand. And again, it's just all about filling all those gaps and stopping the air getting in there. I wear this a lot of the winter. I wore it on the Edinburgh trip. I had it on underneath in my my horrific raining ride the other day, and I really do rate it. So I've ridden down to below freezing quite comfortably, and it really does boost the warmth of your other layers. So the kind of mid layer I was using, again, Albion. It's Albion long sleeve jersey. It just does what it needs to do. It's kind of a bit of a light Roubaix fabric. It's a bit of a kind of middle insulation layer. Again, like I said, I think layers are really important, so you don't want something too hot because then you just sweat through, and if you're sweaty and it's cold, then you end up getting colder. So yeah, so this is fine. I mean, with that Spats layer, I could ride in sort of just 2 or 3 degrees when it was dry with just a gilet on, or as I did in this particular training ride of the day when it was absolutely freezing and wet, I used an insulated gilet, again another Albion one, just to keep a little bit more heat underneath the rain jacket. I don't want to put I don't wear too much underneath. Like, I'm not necessarily a fan of the full length insulated jerseys, especially under another layer, because again you just sweat. So an insulated gilet is a good kind of compromise between the two. And if you've got like the Zoa scarf around as well, it just stops. It keeps you warm and stops that air escaping. So yeah, that's what I use to keep warm. That system, there's a few options on there as I've shown you, but I've ridden down to kind of -7, -8, and it had been fairly dry, and then almost the worst conditions are the ones you saw the other day, just above freezing and absolutely tipping it down, and I stayed pretty warm in all those conditions. So I hope that was useful. I'll put all the links to all the products down in the comments and description below. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want more of this stuff, and I'll see you soon.